So tonight I'm so excited. I have the pleasure of interviewing Connie. She's one of my best friends. And she's been in the business with me for a long time. But she's just grown so much, you guys, from being in the business. And I can't wait to kind of take a trip down memory lane and have her talk about just like what her situation was like before the business, because it looks totally different than it does now, and kind of just what all she's learned through the process and some tips that she has for you. So Connie, I'm going to let you kind of start and talk about what your life looked like before the business, and I kind of want you to go back too of like growing up, what your life was like as well.
Okay, hi guys. We just got home from a 10-hour drive, so I look like crap, but it's fine because this is my normal life anyway, so at least I'm not false advertisement. But anyways, so I grew up in a home with 5 sisters, so there's 6 girls. We lived on government assistance, so we lived in a 3-bedroom apartment through government assistance. My mom worked, my dad worked. There were times where I remember we were on food stamps, and food stamps when they were paper and no longer cards anymore, my mom would give us like the paper dollar food stamps to go to the store and buy stuff. I mean, I wore my sister's hand-me-downs growing up, going to school. I was really embarrassed to even just go to school in general because I never really had much. And I was always wearing like my aunt's shoes or something like that. And like there were times where I like went on field trips and stuff, and my friends' parents had to pay for stuff for me because my parents couldn't afford it. So I grew up very unfortunate. I mean, for me and just what I've experienced, I know there's people that have probably experienced worse than me, but there was also times where we never had Christmases because my parents couldn't afford gifts or anything like that. We would have a tree, but we wouldn't have the gifts. So growing up and going through all of that, and then seeing my sisters go through that same routine, getting pregnant at such a young age, and still to this day on government assistance and food stamps, I knew that I, 1, didn't want to have kids at such a young age, and 2, struggle and live like my parents did, or now how my sisters are. So I think that was like my mindset from the beginning growing up, is like, I never wanted to live this way. So fast forward to high school, I barely graduated high school. I went to like a charter school just to get through high school. I hated school. Grammar is my worst subject ever. So like, don't judge me, like, sorry, but I can be your friend, but just don't judge me with like my words and stuff. So I graduated high school, and I went to work right after that because that's what I seen like my parents doing. They were working hard, but barely making ends meet. So I knew that I at least had to work to pay bills. So I worked ever since I was 16. And I think I was just going through the motions of life of just working and making money and paying bills and buying the things that I wanted. And then I finally had this dream that I like wanted to buy a house, and I wanted to be the first person like in my family to ever buy a house. So like my parents never owned a house. None of my sisters ever owned a house. Mind you, there's 5 sisters. And so that was my dream of mine, to like buy a house, because you know that's like the American dream. You buy a house, you go to school, you get in debt, all this stuff. And I always tell everybody, my like thought of American dream now, going through it all, is literally debt. Okay, it's debt. Like the American dream is literally debt. And so I bought my house. Me and Andy kind of bought it together. I met him shortly, like right before I bought it. And so that was just like our thing, whatever. And then I quickly realized that it's freaking expensive. It's freaking expensive. If I want to have a nice car, if I want to have a nice house, if I want to freaking furnish the house, it's really expensive. And I still worked full-time job. Andy worked full-time job, but he was in construction. So at some times throughout the months, I remember one year, and I think it was the first year that I started the business, he probably works 3 to 4 months out of the year. And Kelsey's waving at you.
Huh?
Kels, I'm on a team soon. So anyways, so he's in construction. So when it rained, there was like no work. And there were times where we were like paying bills on like paying 2 full-time bills on 1 full-time paycheck. Does that make sense? So we were literally just like struggling and building up credit cards, trying to just like live this life. I don't know. I guess for me, because I grew up the way that I did, I didn't want people to think that I was struggling. I didn't want people to think that like we couldn't afford our bills. You know, I didn't want people to think that like I was charging my Starbucks $5.35 venti pumpkin spice latte every single day to a credit card, because to me, if I didn't have that like every morning, that meant that I was like poor, and being poor to me brought me back to my childhood. So I had to like come out and have the Starbucks. I had to go out for lunch every single day and charge it to a credit card, and not like tell people that like I was really struggling. And then I think that's when we got like a random message from you. I don't know if you want me to stop or if you
Oh
want me
no,
to
that's good. And I love that. I think it just like shows so much growth in you too, just to be able to like recognize that. I think a lot of people are doing that, but they're not recognizing what they're doing, right?
Mhm.
Like it's almost like we feel like we have something to prove, right?
Yeah.
And we want everybody to like notice that we're good, but we don't want them to look too close, because if they
Mhm.
do, they're going to see the reality of it, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like we put on really good makeup and it's like, but then when the
Yeah.
makeup washes off, like, dang, like where is everything? And I know, I think that we more so than anything are always proving it to ourselves. Like
Yes.
we're proving it to ourselves is like, we're not poor, and we're convincing ourselves every time we buy the Starbucks. We're convincing ourselves every time we buy the house, or we put something in credit card debt, because we can't see it. We have the money, but it's not our money, it's somebody else's money. And so I love that. So yeah, so talk about then when we started, how we started kind of connecting, and how that story went.
So I got this random message from this girl on Instagram that I had never met. Like I had never really used social media unless I was like being nosy on like my friends from high school's post or following. You know, you get down that like rabbit hole of like a friend's mom, sister's aunt's friend. Um, and so I remember me and Andy, we used like our free room at the casino. So we were just like hanging out at the bar and having a couple drinks. I vividly remember when I received this message. And it was just like, hey girl, I think you'd be really good. You know, like that random voice in your head. I think you'd be like so bomb at what I do. Like, could you use an extra income? And I was like, first of all, who are you? How did we become friends? Like, honestly, I don't even know how we became friends, or when. And I was like, meh, I don't know, like I can't do that, because then I feel like that's gonna let people know that like we're struggling and we need money, and you know, I don't want people to know that. I was hiding it for so long. Um, and then I always wanted to try the wraps, because I've always just been insecure with like my love handles and just like being like wide in that area. And I've always just, there was a couple girls that sold it and I just never bought them. And then I was like, okay, well, let me become a customer first, just so I can believe that the products really work. And so I told you that I became a customer, and um, I told my mom about it and she became a customer the same day. And I told my sister about it and she became a customer the same day. So Kels got 3 customers within the matter of like an hour or whatever. And there was like product rewards and stuff that people got. Anyways, I got my wraps in, I followed the directions, and I drank the water and I took the befores and afters, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I still could see my love handles. And I messaged Kelsey and I was like, hey girl, too bad your wraps didn't work. I'm like, too bad your wraps didn't work. Sorry. Like, I just wasted my money basically. And she like asked me all the questions. Did you drink water? I'm like, yep. And she's like, okay, well send me your pictures. So I sent her my before and afters. And I didn't know that I was supposed to put them side by side. I was just literally looking at myself in the mirror, and she put them side by side, and there was a huge difference, a huge freaking difference, you guys. And so I was like, oh, okay. um, and so then I just watched her for a little bit, and I just seen her like making money from her phone. She was like always so happy. And if you probably met me 4 years ago, shortly before this business, I think Kelsey even got like a whiff of the witch that I used to be, and how negative I was, and just how in my feelings I was, how miserable I was. You know, I remember I would like take sleeping pills to go to sleep because I would stress about like what bills we had to pay that Thursday night and how broke we were going to be or what bill we could skip. And I was just so miserable at that time. And I think that your posts were more so like a light at the end of the tunnel, just letting me know that there is something out there and I don't have to live poor and hide it, or not poor, but less of, or hide whatever, of my life that I was trying to hide.
Yeah. I remember too, like, I literally remember getting the text of like, your apps don't work, sorry. Like this like passive aggressive, right, message. And I was like, okay, let me see the pics after I asked you the question. When I put them side by side, I remember like showing Brian even and being like, do you see a difference or like, am I crazy? And
turn Connie up a little bit. I can't hear you.
oh, okay. Brian said, turn Connie up. I can't hear her. And so I feel like it was one of those things where I was just like, no, there, she has to see this. And then when I sent it to you, you know, it was not 3 days later that you messaged me and you're like, I'm on your website signing up.
I know. Yeah. And I was just like, what do I do? And I still like, I had no idea that I had a customer, like I had to cancel a customer account. I was just like, whatever, like I'm doing this. I need to make money. And if she can make a couple $1,000s a month, I sure as heck can make $200 to $300. And that would just give us that relief that maybe we could like go on a date night, or we can do something without having to like skip a bill or get behind on something. And it was just like a reliever. So then I jumped in the business. I don't know if you want me to keep going.
And then somehow I ended up coming out there. Never mentioned.
Literally like 3 weeks later.
I ended up coming out to Arizona. And we ended up like hanging out, and it was like I brought my daughter. I was super pregnant, and it was fun. Now tell me, like, when you first got started in the business, what was like the game changer thing for you? Like, what was something that you felt like, okay, this is where things started to shift for me?
I think
a combination of things.
I think in the beginning I was just like running and I had no idea what I was doing. I was just posting. And now that like when I get my notifications or my memories on my phone, I'm like, damn, like what was I even posting? Like what was I even thinking, you know? But it got me somewhere. I was messaging, I was doing all the things that I was told to do, and I was able to hit Ruby in my first 45 days. And at the time we had $1,000 cash bonus, but I don't think it was necessarily that like seeing that money, seeing that bonus, like that's fine. I think that my goals income wise are so much bigger than a Ruby check, and still growing now, because when I do see my checks now, I'm like, I can do better. I can do better and I deserve better. But I think it was probably my first conference. Actually, no, it wasn't my first conference. It was when I flew out to see you. You came in April, and I think I flew out in like June or July that same year. And there was a one team, one mission. And I think I was seeing like Alyssa, Alyssa Marie, whatever she goes by now, Tiffany, all these people that like I followed as leaders. And I just seen that they were freaking real people. Like they were just normal people that like the same person that I kind of was, or that I went through or whatever, like they were real. And they weren't just some person on Instagram that may have been like fake or untouchable or like a celebrity or something. I think it's just getting to that first event and was like, oh, okay, maybe I can do that. Yeah, I remember that too. Deuce was like 2 weeks old, and we had like triple shots from Starbucks, and then Deuce was probably like on caffeine because he wouldn't go to sleep. Yeah, I remember that.
So here's the thing, is one thing I want to touch on too, that I forgot to mention before when you were talking about just like the money part of it, is I think a lot of times we convince ourselves that this money is extra, because the money is extra than what we were previously making, and so it can be extra. But when we really think about it, and I want you guys to be super honest when you answer this in the comments, if you really think about it, this money is actually a necessity for a lot of you. It's a necessity to keep your bills paid on time. It's a necessity to pay off your debt. It's a necessity to pay your mortgage. It's a necessity. And I think that like, for me, when I accepted that and I said, you know what, the $500 really isn't for my hair and my nails. It's so that we can start a savings account, so that we can pay our bills, like so that we can do the things that not even like excessive things that we want to do, but it's things that the lifestyle that I've created for myself. Now, could I live below what I'm living now? Yeah, for sure. But do I want to? And is this money that I'm making a necessity for the lifestyle that I'm choosing to live? Yes. And I think that when we can accept that reality, we work the business with such a different enthusiasm. We work the business with such a different level of excitement and a level of hope and a level of desire and a level of, I got to get it done. This is not an option. This is not a plan B. This is part of my plan A, if not my only plan A. And so I think when that shifted for you, like you said, you came and you saw people, but then you were also working full time for a while. And I think that then your mental shifts have kind of compounded over time, and they've just built on one after the other. But when you've really started to see this as something that could be your full time, it's like, dang. And then you battled with that for a while. Can you talk about like the back and forth that you had about going full time, not going full time?
Yeah. So I think it was, so I started in 2016. And then I sold my house in 2018. So it was almost the end of 2017 that I was like, I'm done with my job. I hate it. I'm quitting January 1st, blah, blah, blah. And then January comes around. I was like, just kidding. Like, because like my full-time income was my comfort. And it was like, well, I don't really have to work a lot in my business, because I know if like I fail at that, I always have like my full-time job to fall back on. And I don't really have to give like the business my all, because like you said, I felt safe. I was safe. I didn't have to do it. But I also was using the money that I was making as an extra. I remember when I got I think it was my first double check, I went and bought a $600 purse before paying off debt. Like, and it still blows my mind to this day, because I thought I deserved this purse, and I still didn't have that like mental growth that I needed, because I remember the start of 2018 was when I was like, damn, if I want to quit my full-time job, I need to pay off debt. I need to get out of debt, because if I don't, then I'm going to be in the same position that I was in when I started this business. And I think the beginning of 2018, it just like hit me, and I was like, okay, I can do this. And the first time that I was able to even make more than just a minimum payment on my credit card, I think I even called you crying, just realizing that like I wouldn't have to wait the 10 years to pay off a credit card just by paying minimum payments on it. And that like I was going to be able to like be out of debt, because my parents are in debt. Like they just owe like a lot in taxes and like all this stuff. That's one thing I still need to work on, but that's okay. That's another time. But I'm just saying, like, I was used to like taking loans out like my parents did, and using credit cards and getting into debt. And I think it finally hit me in the beginning of 2018 that if I really want to quit my job, that I need to pay off debt. And I used 2018 to get to zero. And 2019, I quit my full-time job in February. Paid off all my debt. And I remember cleaning out my desk in February and realizing that like my goal was to make $6,000 a month and have all my debt paid off. And I just wrote it in this crappy little notebook. And I'm pretty sure I was listening to like a YouTube training or something. And I was cleaning out my desk, going through these papers. And I seen that in my folder, and I paid off debt, and I was at that income level. And I literally just went in the bathroom at work, and I just started crying, just because like it's just kind of like real to me that like you write it down and it happens, you know. And I still feel like I haven't taken advantage of that, because I get lazy and I'm just like, okay, I'll make a graphic on my phone and say, this is how much I'm going to make. But I have to remind myself of that time that I was cleaning out my desk and I seen the paper, and I think I shared it in our leadership chat when I found it. And it was so crazy just to see that. Like, I don't even remember writing it down, but I somehow wrote it down subconsciously, and it happened.
I love that so much. I don't think I've heard like some of these stories, so it's getting me so hyped. So for you, like then you left your job, and talk about the transition that it was from going full time to working from home full time, the goods, the bads.
So the first month, March 1st, 2019 is when I made the decision that I was going triple. And it was a good start for me because I was like, all right, I stayed home almost every single day and I worked. I woke up, I journaled, like I worked my butt off. And once I hit triple though, it's when like it kicked in that I was like, dang, I have a lot of freedom. Like we have a lot of time and a lot more money than what we had before. Like, do I spend it? Do we have fun? Like this is my first summer off. Like I have freedom. And I think that's kind of where like I failed in the first part of like being home and not taking advantage or not making a schedule because we were like out on a boat or at the lake or doing something during the week or shopping or whatever. And I didn't take the time to put the work into my business because I was like, oh, I'll have time later when I get home. Oh, I'll do it the last couple hours before I go to sleep. Or, oh, I'll do it in the morning before. And then something comes up and I was like, oh, I need to take my dad to the doctor. Oh, my sister wants to go to lunch. Oh, my sister wants me to go to the store with her, whatever. And I always had these excuses come up. So I finally just realized that like I have to get up and I have to work before anything else. And after that, and I get everything done, then I can go on with my day. But it did take a couple of months for me to realize that. But I'm not saying that I was perfect every single month and I followed the rules every single month because there are times that I slipped and there are times that I was like, it can go on the back burner today. But I'm grateful for those times because I think being where I'm at today and where my team is today, I needed to experience that myself to share that with other people because even when I went diamond, I think it was terrifying for me because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be a leader. And then I have to do all these things when I'm diamond. And I remember like, I messaged you multiple times, like, I'm scared to go diamond. Like, I don't know if I want to go diamond. Like that scares me. I don't know why, but that diamond scares me, you know? But it's just these experiences that I think I've gone through that I can share a lot with my team, and their newbies and stuff like that. So.
I love it. What do you think scared you the most about like going diamond and like getting into leadership, and like what's something that you still have to deal with even to this day that you're like, oh God, I feel unequipped for this?
I think just leading other people because I don't want to fail them. And I don't want it to like be my fault or feel like it's my fault because I didn't do enough for them to get to where they are. Or if they quit, I don't want it to be on me like I did something wrong. I think that's just like my biggest fear from when I went diamond till now. Even when I sign new people, I'm still like, oh my God, am I going to train them right? Am I going to say the wrong thing and they're going to quit? Like, or they not going to sign up because I tell them it's $99? Like I still have those fears too. And I'm like, so yeah, I think it's just.
And what do you think, like for people on here that are like, oh yeah, that's me, I feel that, like what would you say to them? Like what do you wish you would have known, or that, you know, somebody would have told you, or that knowing what you know now, like because you do it anyways now, probably with a lot less hesitation than you did before, but what would you tell somebody who's struggling with that same thing?
I just think that they'll always be back no matter if they tell you no now. And I've gotten a lot of messages recently of like, how are you signing distributors every single month? Or how are you, not that I'm a mass enroller, but what I've been teaching like my newbies and stuff, they're like, how do you sign people? Like, what are you doing? And for me, it was just such an aha moment when I said it in my head or when I talked it out, is like, people are going to have FOMO. You know, like they can see that you started the business. They can see that you're talking about products. They can see all of that. But the second that you start sharing your enrollments and the second that you start sharing your wins, that's when they get FOMO because it's working for you. So why couldn't you teach them that it's going to work for them, right? And it was just, I don't know. It just made so much sense in my head when I said it because we can say that it's working for us. We can say that. But when you're posting that you signed a customer, when you're posting that you got a bonus, when you're posting that you got a sample, you're freaking teaching people, or you're telling people that you can teach them how to do the same thing because you're showing them that you could do it. That, I don't know. That's been like my thing when people have been asking me. So I'm like, that just made sense. Cause I mean, I know I have huge FOMO. huge FOMO when I'm like, oh shit, she signed a customer. Oh dang, like I need to sign a customer. Like, what is she doing? And I mean, I'll just message you like, what are you doing? You know? So I mean, I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, no, and I love it. And I think it's so true that like when you show people like, and sometimes I think, you know, even for those of you guys who are like, even a month into the business, you're like, oh, I've only signed 6 customers. It's like, that's a big deal. You should be
Yeah.
sharing every single one. And I forget that too. Sometimes because because it's easy to be like, oh, well, that person signed 97 million. So of course, my little one Peasley one is not going to do anything. But those people that are watching you aren't seeing that. They're not seeing the people who enrolled 100. You're seeing that, but we forget that not everybody's seeing that. So when they see, well, she's still enrolling customers, she's still enrolling distributors, she just joined 3 days ago and she's enrolling customers, like you need to share that. And it's not bragging, it's literally to do that. It's to show people like, hey, I can teach you how to do it too. It still works. So I love that. Okay, what is like the hardest lesson you've had to learn in this business?
Patience. I think I'm still learning it, but patience is really, really like the biggest thing that I think I've had to learn. And not be so much of like an introvert. As much as like maybe my social media or like on a Zoom, I can kind of sound like I'm like cool and I can like be best friends, but then like the second I'm like in front of you, I'm just like a mute and I'm just like in the background watching you. So I think that's another thing.
And I think too, like there's probably other people on here who are introverts, and it's not that you have to become an extrovert, but I think that, you know, you can even speak to this, that it's been good for you. Like it fills you up. It's not like you're trying to be somebody that you're not, but like the more that you open up to people, the more fulfilled you get. And I think that that's like something that a lot of people can feel like, oh, well, I don't have the same personality on for this, and I don't have the same personality. Somebody asked, how do you work on patience? How have you gotten more patient?
I honestly don't think I've gotten more patience. I just pray about it. And I tell myself that like God's teaching, like I was taught a lesson this weekend and I kept telling myself like, you're being taught like you need patience. And I literally could not stop. And so I just messaged Aaron about something because I was so impatient and I kept telling myself, I'm like, this is what he's teaching you. Like he's teaching you patience. And then I just went and did something else because I was so impatient. So I don't know. I'm still learning on how to do that. But also I think talking myself through it and just letting myself know that like, I mean, it's grown a lot. But there are certain things that I do have to work on as far as being a leader in my life, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think too that being patient is one of those things that like to me, I'm not a very like patient person. But what I am is I do know that everything will be okay. And I think that just because you want it fast doesn't mean that that's bad. Like I don't view that as being bad. It's just understanding that even if it doesn't happen fast, you're still going to be okay. Even in the wait, that you're still going to be okay. And I think also when you understand that being patient, like for me, I know that I've gotten like probably more patient in the fact of like I don't let it affect everything else. Like I'm still very impatient, but I'm able to like push my patience to the side and still or my impatience to the side and still continue forward. And I think that that's been the biggest shift for you is like it hasn't been a roadblock, it's been more of like a detour now.
Mm-hmm.
Like when your patience really gets in the way of like of you being impatient, you can become impatient to the point where it will stop you from doing anything else because you're so caught up in what you want has not happened yet. But when you realize like I can still want that now, but continue on in spite of not having it now. Does that make sense to everybody? I know this is like I feel like it's like more complicated when I say it out loud than it is in my head, but I'm hoping that makes sense. Is like, if you feel like you struggle with patience, just realize that nobody's saying you have to like be okay with not having it. But what I think growing patience is continuing on even when you don't have exactly what you want right now. And that's something that I've had to teach myself too. And so I love that question. What do you think the best thing you've gotten from this business is?
My friendships and my faith, for sure.
Okay, expand on it.
One, like I said, I didn't really like school, so I didn't have like a ton of friends, like outside of the business. But I think for me, it's helped me level up because I was just around my sisters who lived on government assistance and who got one monthly check every single month. So in my circle of friends at the time, I was making the most money, right? Even though I wasn't like balling in thousands and thousands of dollars and I was in debt, but I still made more money and I still had a house, like I still had that like one thing that they didn't have. So it just brought me around friends that not have only like made me more like positive or push me to be positive or push me to like just be a better me instead of like always being crabby with me or gossiping or just being so negative. I think that's what it's helped me with as far as my friendships and stuff. Obviously I have you, Liz, and like everybody else. Kels, you're on here, don't get offended because I didn't say your name first. Kelsey Offerman, not Kelsey Thorin. But then my faith. So growing up, we grew up Catholic, and I mean, it's not like I went to school. My parents put me in I don't even know what it was, but it's not something that we followed, and I hated it because I never knew what they were saying because they didn't speak English. It's always in Spanish and stuff. But I always had this like thought, like you have to be a certain person, you have to wear like certain things to like be religious, I guess. And I think this has opened up my mind to just knowing that like I don't have to be this perfect person or this person that wears a certain thing or dresses a certain way or says the right words or all that stuff, to know that like God loves me or that he's not going to like betray me or anything like that. But also that just having that reassurance, I feel like when I am feeling like not myself or when I do feel like uneasy or impatient, that like there is somebody there that can ease that worry for me. And I think it's helped a lot in this whole last 4 years of my journey because it's been so up and down. So yeah, that has to do a lot with feeling. So it took me a while to get it out.
No, I love it. I love it. And looking back, what would you tell yourself like that you wish you knew? Like, what would you say to yourself that you wish you knew? Like to any newbies that like if you look back on your journey and you're like, dang, like I just wish I would have figured that out before. Like what would that be?
I still think it's going to come back to patience. Because I feel like I wanted everything so quickly. And I think going ruby so quickly and then taking a year to go diamond, it still wasn't quick enough for me. But going through the last 3 years after I've gone diamond, I feel like that it's allowed me to grow and see the smaller wins and be able to build those bonds and those friendships over time, versus if I did go quickly to every rank, that I may have missed out on so much of that.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that understanding that every position that you're in has a purpose, right? Like every part that you're in, it has a purpose, and really trying to seek and find that purpose instead of changing the situation, like changing yourself so that the situation will change. And I love that. So what is working? Let's switch to business for a little bit. Like what's working for you right now on signing distributors, signing loyal customers?
So for signing distributors, I think I've just taken that tip that I've given you guys earlier, is just like sharing my wins and sharing what's working for me on my newsfeed, and just letting people know that like just because I post about it and just because I'm an It Works distributor and It Works rep doesn't mean that like I'm like automatically making money or whatever the deal is, that I just share my wins. And that's how I feel like I've been able to sign distributors, because messaging for distributors has always been like a downfall for me. It's always been something that freaks me out. And I feel like it's easier for me to be able to share my journey and sharing what's working for me on my newsfeed. So then when I do talk to them, they kind of already seen my newsfeed, they've followed me, and it's just a little bit of information that I have to give them to be able to either get them to sign up or to continue watching me, to know that that the business is for them.
Yeah, I love that. What about for customers? Like what's the biggest tip that you have for customers?
I'm going to say host to post. Even though I go back and forth with it, then I'm like, it doesn't work. Oh, it's working. It doesn't work. Like I put 5 host to post up and nobody's liked or commented. Like, what the heck? Like, and I go through those moments probably like every other day, but that's probably where I sign most of my customers. And it's not like right on the spot. It's more so of those seeds planted that I messaged those people before. And I've only sent them that first host to post message, but they never seen it, but they seen another post of like a product post or a distributor post or something that they're like, oh, okay, so this is real. And that's where it comes back to that whole FOMO thing, because I was sharing that people were enrolling. I was sharing that, people were buying samples and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that like, so many people feel that way. It's like this love-hate relationship we have with host to post, because like sometimes it's great and then sometimes you're like, this is not working. For real, this is actually not working. I know people say that, but for real, this is not working. And you can just like get in your head and be like, but people don't understand that's just actually not working for me. I'm not just making it up. But a lot of times you just have to keep going. Like Kayla said, and it does work. Like it really does work. And I just want you to know that I'm so proud of you. I actually did this. And so if you were my prayer Zoom a couple days ago, I think it was on Friday that I read this, but it was so good. And it made me think of you, Connie. And it made me think that there's so many people out here that need to hear this that I'm about to share with you guys. It's just from a devotional that I found, but it's talking about the real you. And I think in this business, the light that it sheds on us sometimes isn't one that we always want. It isn't one that's like, it's very easy to run away from our flaws and our insecurities and the things when we look at ourselves and we say, oh, I don't like that. And I just want to read this to you because it's so good. And it says, have you ever gotten on the right track, made progress, and then for one reason or another, slipped back and gone into your old ways? Drop a 1 in the comments if you guys feel this way. If you've gone on the right track, you've made progress, for one reason or another, and you slipped and you've gone back into your old ways. Maybe this is even your track record. You know the pattern. You make a positive change that lasts for a short season, but don't get too excited because you know it won't last. Now you have this little voice in your head that tells you this is who you are and this is how we'll always be. Eventually you question, why even try? I mean, what's the point when you know positive change won't last? You'll lose all you worked so hard for again. You'll go back out of balance, out of shape, out of practice, and out of energy and out of willpower to do a dang thing about it. That's the way it's always been. So of course, this is what it will go down to now. You may be doing good now, but in the back of your mind, you know this won't last. You'll go back to the old you again because you can't keep up with this level of long-term effort. So you fear when you'll slip again. You'll fear when this newfound strength and energy will go away. You'll fear all the progress you've made going down the drain. Well, let me speak life into you today. Let me shed light on this common fear and this nagging voice you've come to believe of a grounding truth. You don't have to go back to who you used to be. And maybe, just maybe, the old you isn't the real you. Maybe the girl who struggled to get out of bed, the girl who wasted the days, the girl who could never get herself to actually do the things she knew she needed to do was never you. That was the cheap imitation, lesser than version of you. And that girl was an imposter. And now that she's exposed, she has no place in your life. The enemy loves to play the screw up and beat up game. He points out the times you've screwed up in the past and paints a picture of future holding the same. Shame and guilt become your companion. You're so burdened with all the times you screwed up and all the beatings you've given yourself, you lack energy to believe that anything in the future could even possibly be different. So here you settle. You settle with your seeming truth of always struggling with the same things. You settle with change never sticking and your old ways being your forever ways. The enemy tries to convince you that something is wrong with you and you're broken beyond repair. You see other people who have changed, others who do the things that you want to do, but you have come to believe that even after all these failed attempts, you don't have that power. You are somehow lacking what others are equipped with. Here's the truth. That weak overwhelmed, miserable, stuck you is the imitation version of you. She's an imposter. That isn't the real you. And she's not the real you. You don't have to keep going back to her. If you're making progress, it's because the real you is finally coming through. The real you is showing up and making the daily decisions around here. The real you is running the show. How about this? How about you invite her to stay? This is where our focus needs to be. Instead of fearing the old imposter, weak version of you coming back and wrecking your progress, harnessing your God-given power, that you won't, from this day forward, declare that you won't settle for anything less than the real you. That God makes no mistakes when he made you. He made you in his image, whole and complete, lacking nothing. This is who you really are, a vessel for the power of God, a vessel not for the lies of the enemy. The lies of the enemy maybe tell you you're fat and you'll always be fat. The truth of God says, I made your body to be a temple and I gave you the power to change any bad habits you need to change. The lies of the enemy tell you you're lazy and you never stick with anything long term. But the truth of God says you have the ability to do more than you could ever imagine, and nothing will be impossible when you partner with him. And she goes on and she talks about all the stories of the Bible, but it says once you start living your life as your true self, you don't have to go back to your old ways. Let the real you, the one that God had in mind when he created you, run this show. Make your decisions, choose your attitude, and be in charge. Yeah, I know you used to be lazy. Me too. I know you used to have really crappy habits. Me too. I know you screwed this thing up a time or two. I'm right there with you, sister. I know you've beat yourself up over all the times you slipped and gone back to the old ways where you lose your progress, and you still have a few bruises of the few old bruises from the same thing. But once you understand that the old you isn't the real you, you no longer have to fear going back there. So stop looking back. Stop obsessing. Trust God is freeing you from this lesser than version you were pretending to be, and now empowering you to be the real you. Listen, don't believe that you are who you used to be. Not this lesser than version the enemy has been trying to convince you of. Not this woman that's incapable of lasting change. No, that's not you. Not this broken beyond repair girl that can never stick with the things that she knows she needs to do. That is certainly not you. You are a vessel for the power of God. You were created on purpose, with a purpose. You were chosen. You were hand selected for such a time as this. And you have been perfectly equipped with everything needed to live your life fully. This is the real you. Make friends with the real you. She doesn't have to go back, and you don't have to go back to the old fake version. And I wanted to share that because I was thinking, Connie, when you were talking and I was hearing all these things like you were saying, it was like I've just literally seen you grow before my eyes. And I think we all struggle with that so bad. It's like, how long is this going to last? Is this the real version of me? Is this real? Like, or am I trying to be a fake version? Because all we've known is the old version of ourselves. But when we realize that we don't have to go back to that this actually feels good because it is us and it is our true self. And so I'm so proud of you, Connie. I know that other people needed to hear that besides you, but it just made me think of you. And so I felt compelled to share it. So sorry, I know that was a little long, but I love you guys and I'm so proud of you, Connie.
Thanks. I appreciate you. I wouldn't be this far without you, just the encouragement alone, I think. And just,
I think you would be right where you are. You'd be right where you need to be. So I'm so proud of you guys, and I'm just like so appreciative of everybody who hopped on tonight. I'm gonna close this out in prayer, and then we'll be able to go on and keep going. So, dear Jesus, we just come to you tonight, and we just say thank you. Thank you for enabling us to create this safe community with each other. Thank you for allowing us to build true, lasting friendships. And thank you for allowing us to grow. Thank you for allowing us to make progress. Thank you for never expecting perfection from us. Lord, that is so freeing that you never expected us to be perfect. But allow us to progress, allow us to grow, allow us to get better each and every single day so that we can become the real version you've created us to be. allow us not to be stuck in our old ways, but to be freed from that and to be moving forward continually, knowing that what you've called us to is greater than where we've came from. We're so grateful for you just being there for us every single day, Lord, for you providing abundance for us, even if we don't feel like we're worthy of it. And so, Lord, we just ask that you continue to watch over us, that you protect us, you protect our families, you protect our loved ones, but also that you protect our hearts and our minds, that you equip us to be able to handle anything that's coming our way, and that you allow us to be an inspiration to other people. Allow us to be blessed so that we can be a blessing to others, that we can give more to others, that we can have a strong mind so that we can show others what can be done with that. Lord, we love you so much, and we know that without you, none of this would be possible. And we're so grateful for just the divine appointments that you've put in our lives, whether it be a random message on Instagram or whether it be a random meeting in a restaurant, or however these connections have come into place. Lord, we're so grateful that you've appointed us for such a time as this, and we know you're not done, and we know we're not done. And so guide us and direct us so that we know where you want us to go. We love you so much, Lord. We're so thankful for every single person that's on this Zoom, every single person that's going to listen to this Zoom. And we ask that you just bless their business abundantly, that you bless their hearts abundantly, that you bless their minds abundantly, and that we just have more than we could have ever thought or asked or imagined. We ask all this in your name. Amen. I love you guys. You guys are so awesome. Keep killing it. I'm so proud of you. And thank you, Connie. I'm so proud of you too. Bye, guys.